And welcome to the final OUTA hour of 22 as we wrap up this year. Thank you for joining me. I'm Tom London with you for the next 60 minutes on the show as we chat to the CEO of OUTA, Wayne Duvenage, and the Executive Director in the Accountability Division. We call her everyone's favorite advocate, Stefanie Fick. We'll be talking about the successes and looking back on 2022 and looking forward to 2023 and taking a look at the future projects that OUTA will be tackling and what OUTA will be doing differently in the new year. But we start the show tonight with a discussion around the charges or the case against Deputy President David Mabuza. It's been in the news lately, you'll know that. And we'll be dissecting and discussing that in the first portion of the show. But before we do, let's say hello to Wayne Duvenage, shall we? And ask Wayne how his week has been. And what a week it's been in South Africa. We had Parliament yesterday. We had Andre de Ruyter resign today. We had, was it Yengeni allowed to contest for positions, but not allowed. A massive conference coming up this weekend. It almost feels like South Africa's fate hangs in the balance on a daily basis. How's it, Wayne?
How's it, Tom? Yeah, what a month this week has been, as my wife says. And we also had old Cole Niehaus banned from the ANC.
That's right.
Yeah, look, you're quite right. It's amazing how captive we are held to a political party that has a lot of mudslinging that's going on. And we watch this going on while the eyes are taken off the ball of how to run and manage a country efficiently and effectively. So it's really, really diabolical, quite frankly, but all the more reason for us to knuckle down and get to work and fixing this country. And there's so much to do. But yeah, it's been an interesting weekend. It's going to be an interesting few days ahead. And we've got some serious issues that need to unfold now.
Wayne, one of the big, if not the biggest story and biggest trending story in South Africa today is the resignation of Eskom CEO Andre de Ruyter. It looks like more heads will follow. Everyone's talking about it. What's OUTA's position on this resignation?
Look, I mean, also Jan Alverholzer, his COO, is retiring. Look, Tom, first of all, I'm not surprised. Well, we're not surprised. Secondly, you know, people, Eskom has had about, I think it was 11 CEOs in 12 years. Andre's lasted the longest. And he's done some good groundwork. They have a new board. There's a lot of people on that board that are good. There's some capacity gaps. And, you know, no one's irreplaceable. Fortunately, it's not Gwede Mantashe that has to decide on his replacement. It is Pravin Gordhan, who has a little bit more savvy and sense. And they'll find somebody. Hopefully they will bring in some expertise, possibly from overseas if we don't have it here. But we do have talent here. And we do have teams that can fix Eskom. And I've got a feeling, we're discussing this a little bit, the debate that there's potentially, and you see it on the energy groups, there's potentially a sabotage that is happening to undermine him. And it could be that we'll exit load shedding as a result of now that he's going. Okay. And I'm not saying that, you know, vexatiously or flippantly. I'm saying that somewhere there's this element that has been bubbling under, and that's possibly a catalyst for his resignation as well. So, you know, we've got to live with these changes, and we'll get through this. And he's not irreplaceable. But I'm sad he's going, and I think he's done a good job. But under these circumstances, I'm not surprised.
And Wayne, I mean, I have to ask you, yesterday's vote in the National Assembly could be looked at one of two ways, perhaps more than two ways. But one approach could be that the president has been engaged in illegal activities. He is effectively corrupt, and the majority party protected him, therefore protected corruption. The other way to look at it is that our current president faced a heck of a storm when he got into his position, and it has taken 4 years to root out the corruption in the NPA, for example, the SOEs. I mean, the list is endless. And yesterday was merely a pushback by Cyril Ramaphosa's cabinets and MPs and party faithful to push back the corrupt. What did you think when you were watching the broadcast?
Yeah, a combination of things. Two things. You have party factionalism that's raised its head a little bit, but it raised its head worse than that, or more than that, in Jacob Zuma's last potential impeachment, no confidence vote in August 2017. But having said that, this is what Stefanie will talk a bit about it, I'm sure. The electoral reform that is so important, that you don't have people and MPs in a majority party or ruling party voting along party lines as opposed to what's best for the country. So I think maybe an impeachment process needed to go through the motions, but it's not even going to get there if people are having to follow dictated orders from the top, as opposed to, people use your conscience, think, and you vote accordingly, instead of, if you don't vote for the party line, then you are going to face the pressure from the top. And that's why we need reform, because if you're put in there by the people and not by the party, you have a different constituency to answer to. So very interesting development. And there's a lot of arguments of, well, better the devil you know than you don't know, and he's the best of a bad bunch. So let's limp through till 2024 with him, and who's going to replace him. And there's lots of good arguments on both sides. So I don't want to get too into that, but it's very typical of party politics trumping again, and the weakness of our system.
Another big story was the case brought against Deputy President David Mabuza. It's been dominating headlines for the last week or so. We'll be chatting about that in just a moment. Before we do, let's do our usual hellos. We'll just take a minute to say hello to you, find out who our Chief Whip is. Whoa, hold on a moment. Chief Whip, back to Chief Whip status. Claire Feldman is our Chief Whip tonight. Fakile Dada says, good evening, Tom and the Outarians. Donovan Breedenhan says, hello, guys. Devanie Davids, the show's producer, says hello. Samantha van Nispen, the head of marketing and comms at OUTA, says hi, everyone. Dagmar Hurliman says good evening, everybody. And please like and share this broadcast if you're watching at the moment. Claire Feldman says Didi Mabuza, the cat. Stefanie Fick will be on your screen in just a moment. Stefanie says, how's it, everybody? Rudy Heineke's on board, says good evening, Outarians. Ndangano Mashishane says, indeed. How's it, Ndangano? Good to have you with us. Sue Truebody says, good evening, all. Who else have we got? Michael John... you're saying hello to each other. All right. Michael John Billsbury out of the Eastern Cape. Ben Fraser says hello from Cape Town. Good evening from a beautiful Cape Town, says Ben. Glennis Truby says, hi, everyone. Christine Finnis says, hi, OUTA team. And more hellos will follow. We'll just... I think we'll stop it there. Okay, there we go. Melissa Whitehorn. Bit late, but hello from Pretoria. Hello, Melissa. Freddie Mills has got questions already. Helen Duvenage is on board. Hello, Helen. Helen says, hi, everybody. Leonard van der Reitgarten says, love your work. Lynette Dawkins says, hello, everybody. Debbie Stephenson says, feels like we're heading for a waterfall with a rudderless boat. Nicola Jane Goods on board says, howdy. Brenda Doyle says, hi, all. And I'll pop more hellos up on screen as we move through the show. Remember, you can ask Wayne, Stefanie, or our guest this evening questions and put comments to them. Put them in the video underneath the comments section. All right, let's get to the first issue at hand tonight, which is the case against Deputy President David Mabuza. And Stefanie Fick joins us this evening, as well as Wayne Duvenage. You've seen him say hello to you tonight, as well as a gentleman called Fred Daniels' attorney, Jacques Joubert. Jacques will join us to explain some of the details around this case. We'll be finding out who Fred Daniel is and why Fred Daniels' name pops up in the case against Deputy President David Mabuza. But let's start off with the work that OUTA has been doing regarding the case against the Deputy President. For that, we say hello to Stefanie Fick. Hello, Stefanie.
How's it, Tom, and how's it, everybody? It's really an honor to be on the last show of OUTA Hour for 2022, and it's going to be a cracker. I think it's lacquer to talk about everything we've done. But let's start with the case against Didi Mabuza. I think the reason that we laid these charges is the fact that if you read the affidavit, and what you see is that this has been coming for a while, but like we've seen with state capture, cases are laid and it just doesn't go anywhere. And I think this is an important case because land restitution in its, the purpose of land restitution is supposed to be for people, that was basically previously disadvantaged, and they abused that.
Yeah.
Not only just to enrich themselves, but to the detriment of certain claimants. But I'm not going to go into too much detail. I think the person that is really the expert, when it comes to just the sheer fraud that went on in Mpumalanga is Jock. And I think, Jock, you need to, where did this all start, if I may ask? What was the first thing that happened that was the beginning of all this shenanigans?
Well, hello to everybody, and thank you for the opportunity to speak about the case. Of course, I have to have I've got to be reserved in some senses because I'm Fred's counsel in this matter, which is not my preferred profession. I'm a mediator at heart. I believe if you put people together to talk, you can resolve all problems. Unfortunately, in this case, there has been since I've been involved in this case since 2015, absolutely no indication, no willingness of the government defendants to even consider the possibility of liability sitting around a table. So for Mr. Daniel, it really started in 1999 already when he started his project, and he found soon after that land claims being placed on his property, which we believe are fraudulent land claims, were there to harass him. But he was also targeted by the Wildlife Protection Services of the Mpumalanga Tourism and Parks Board, who were withholding very important permits from his project. And I think your readers or your listeners should know that the project of this man was quite incredible. It was this, if I may say so, it was godlike. To take vast tracts of farmland, to buy them, and to start a process of rewilding, to create an ecotourism project that would have created billions of investment in South Africa, thousands of jobs, if only the government had cooperated. And exactly the opposite happened. The harassment that he has been subjected to since 1999 to today, as we speak, the legal techniques that are being used to frustrate and prevent him from being heard in a court of law. We will all know that Section 34 is the heart of our Constitution, which means that we can hold government to account, and government must hear our concerns. Without Section 34, we may as well close the doors to our country. So I think it's important for me to say that part of the harassment continues to this day, and that everything is done to prevent this matter from being resolved, to prevent Fred to exercise his Section 34 rights. It is, in fact, I'm ashamed to call myself a South African, to think what he and his family and his son have been subjected to for the last 25 years by a government that is hostile, refuses to do basic service delivery. Any businessman wants service delivery. He needs service delivery. And if that's withheld from him, and if he's harassed, his project will just collapse. And that's really, in the end, what has happened. He has been chased out of Mpumalanga, if I may say so, like a dog. It is shocking what happened to this man, and what I can assure the listeners, that he's never going to give up for his fight for justice, and his fight to be heard, and for the matter to be finally to be resolved. As far as the details of the case is concerned, I don't want to go into too much detail. He and his family have lived in fear. They are incredibly courageous. They have layers of defense at home. They are very, very cautious. I've been threatened. A junior advocate phoned me and told me that the senior advocates are assassins, which obviously meant legal assassins. But a statement like that, in a case where assassination is a buzzword, highly shocking. I've been threatened by Mr. Mike Helens on various occasions that he's going to sue me civilly. I'm still waiting for the letter of demand since 2015 from him, and it hasn't arrived yet. And not only me, also the other people who have worked with Mr. Daniel have been targeted. In fact, it is a miracle that he's after so many years is still able to bring his witnesses to court, who are still willing, 20 years later, since an incident, having given affidavits at the time, that are still willing to take the risk to give evidence. And I think one of the reasons why this trial is proceeding is because of COVID-19. The trial started virtually, and I can't tell you how powerful it has been to sit in a virtual trial, how much cost effective it is, and how much safer the witnesses have felt, and I believe the judge, because of the virtual nature of the trial. And it's been very effective in dealing with the issues. So as an advocate, my first choice to my clients is that you talk to your opponent, you resolve issues, you talk about your concerns and your interests, you try and resolve issues before you go to court. And exactly the opposite is being shown by the defendants. And I ask myself, why don't they talk to us? It's absurd. These are government defendants. Who's protecting who? How far does this go to the top? How is it possible that the state attorney could be representing the defendants in the civil trial? Anyway, we are now talking about the criminal matters, so that will be different attorneys, of course. But I must commend the OUTA's bravery and courage to lay those charges, because it couldn't have been an easy decision to make.
Well, let's ask Wayne Duvenage about that decision, Wayne. And am I correct in saying, for our viewers who aren't deeply familiar with this case, that there were properties in Mpumalanga that were being bought up by people at, let's say, R1 million? I'm using arbitrary amounts now, and then resold to government in multiples of millions, and that Fred Daniel got caught up in this mess. And why did OUTA look at this case and look at this problem as something that it should pursue?
Yeah, thanks, Tom, and welcome, Jacques. Thanks for your insights as well and input. Long and short of it, Tom, is this is not new. This information has been out there for a long time. There have been books written about it. Rihanna Rousseau wrote Predator Politics. And when we as executives discuss various things and what should we be looking at and which projects should we be opening up, because sometimes we also submit our project ideas for the team to consider, as opposed to whistleblowers bringing it through the investigation routes and so forth. So long and short is we've been following the Fred Daniel saga, and within that space there's been so much obvious criminal activity with cases that have been laid already, cases opened up at the police station which have all gone missing, have been pushed aside, documents tampered with. And about 3 months ago, we were contemplating we need to do something here. We've engaged with Fred, we've engaged with Jacques, because what we don't want to do is try and reinvent the wheel. We need to get the evidence. We need to get as much our hands on, and then Stefanie spent a long time going through this information, because we don't like to take on matters that don't have concrete evidence and real substance to them. The individual has substance as the deputy president, but is there enough there for the NPA to look at? Because if we file this matter with the NPA and the investigating directorate, they have got to be compelled by the hard evidence we've gotten put there. So for about a month and a half, getting the input, rehashing it, looking at it, and building this 41-page affidavit wasn't easy. And I must commend Stefanie for she had to literally clear her diary, and she's very busy. So it wasn't easy, but eventually we got there. And we laid this complaint over a week ago. And knowing the individual, who the individual is, and all the talk of the dirty work that happens behind the scenes, it's one of those things that you worry about, but at the same time you can't fear in this role.
Sure.
Obviously you've got to be careful, and obviously you've got to cover your bases in that. But OUTA is bigger than one person. OUTA is bigger than 2 or 3 people. This organization is formidable, and it was the right organization to bring this matter, we believe. Now, there's more that's going to come and more that's going to be added in as more and more whistleblowers start coming forward saying, well, we've got this and we've got that. So it wasn't it wasn't difficult decision, but it was a very time-consuming and quite a cumbersome decision. But we got there in the end. And again, kudos to Stefanie. Thanks, Jacques. Thanks to brave people like Fred. And if you ever want to know, I've posted it on Twitter and a few places. If you ever want to know the person Fred and what he's gone through, watch the 45-minute clip that's on Biz News, where Michael Apple interviews him, and he takes you through this journey of hardship and pain and frustration and life-threatening situations. You got to take your head off to him.
Let's ask Stefanie Fick about these charges. Stefanie, could you explain the charges to us?
I think it is about a criminal enterprise. So don't get too stuck in, the money laundering and is this a criminal enterprise and all of that. It is about what they try to do with the land claim. So in terms of legislation, if after a certain period you can then say, you can claim certain rights, or you can just in the normal run-of-the-mill day-to-day can say, I have a claim on certain pieces of land. But what they did in Mpumalanga is they will basically fraudulently claim certain, claim land. Mm-hmm. They will buy it up at R1 million, and then sell it to the Land Claims Commission at 4 times that price. In other words, at the end of the day, the commission bought an enormous amount of land from a handful of people at really exorbitant prices. And guess where the Land Claims Commission get their funds from? It's me and you, and taxpayers, that is paying these funds. And obviously, I think behind the scenes, people were also trying to, grab the lands in order to give it to certain certain individuals. So it's about, the NPA going to investigate all these claims. And all we always wanted, and I think what this charges is all about is, we can make these allegations, and all we want is for the police to actually investigate these claims.
How was the Deputy President involved, Stefanie?
Well, for example, except for the fact that he was MEC and Premier in Mpumalanga, and that there's no way that he did not know and realize what was going on. There was a specific payment that was made to a Versace individuals. That was, if you think, I think if you call Mabuza a thug, I think this guy was also a thug.
Versace was the guy buying up the land at nominal value and then reselling.
Exactly. They will get valuators in to valuate these properties, fraudulently. So that's why we say it's this criminal enterprise that all work together to make sure that these exorbitant amounts were paid over. I'm interrupting myself. I mean, they will go as far as trying to remove individuals from the trust fund because these individuals were saying, this is not what is supposed to happen. So this is really the links they will go through. But to come back to your question, how is Mabuza? I think if you read between the lines, like I said, he was MEC. And there's a lot of these things that it's just impossible for him to not know. For example, there was a sort of a Jacques, I can't remember, it's like a community organization that was established by Didi Mabuza, and he made sure, and he will, Jacques, what was their names?
The Greater Buckpass Land Claim Committee that was set up by Mr. Mabuza to strong-arm land claims and to try and force Mr. Daniel to accede to what were and still are fraudulent land claims. and there was violence that was committed at one of his properties. His properties were petrol bombed, and on one particular day, Mr. Mabuza, during a wild riot, one can actually describe as an assault on his business or cradle of life. Mr. Mabuza arrived on the back of a bakkie with a loud hailer. An emissary of Land Affairs arriving on a scene like this, not an emissary of Safety and Security, the emissary of Land Affairs, arriving on the back of the bakkie with a loud hailer, telling the people that that he'll make sure they get their land back, they must now calm down and go home. So it's an extraordinary thing. He doesn't live around the corner. For him to suddenly arrive there out of the blue, this was orchestrated. In fact, there's evidence already in the High Court that the local police were told not to get involved in the riot because it was a political matter, which of course is code word for corruption. It's very simple, actually. So there's a lot of evidence about that particular incident and the violence, and one of Mr. Daniel's associates was assaulted. And then following that particular event, and I think this is also very important in terms of implicating Mr. Mabuza, is that Mr. Daniel contacted Mr. Mabuza because he obviously at that stage didn't know the full extent of Mr. Mabuza's involvement in the land claim corruption. And he thought maybe he could just find out from him, can you help me? Can we resolve this? And Mr. Mabuza said to him, Mr. Daniel, I will help you if you agree to this land claim. I can't protect you if you don't agree to this land claim. Of course, I'm sure there were some choice words that Mr. Daniel would have used in his response to such an outrageous form of force. He then Mr. Mabuza invited Daniel to meet the Greater Badplaas Committee. And these are the people that organized the riot, this violent riot, without any permission. He was invited to go to meet the community. He realized that if he had to go, it could lead to more violence. So he asked his business associate, Mr. John Allen, to go with him to this meeting, which was held at the Forever Resort, which is there in Badplaas. I think many people in South Africa may know about the place. And at this meeting, Mr. Allen will testify. Well, he has given us an affidavit. I think you also have that affidavit, in which he says, as he arrived at the meeting, he was immediately, without any further delay, he was assaulted. He was shouted at, screamed at, pushed around. I'm not going to use the words that were expressed to him by a mob of people who claimed to be the Greater Badplaas Land Claim Committee, and amongst them was Mr. David Mabuza. And the way what Mr. Daniel, what Mr. Allen describes is this: Mr. Mabuza was standing there with a smirk on his face. This was clearly an attempt to intimidate Mr. Daniel in the end to accede to land claim claims that were fraudulent. May I just add? I mean, the simple way to understand this case is to see it through the lens of state capture. What happened is that the Land Institution Commission, which is responsible for the all-important land reform process in South Africa, I think we must be very clear that the land issue in South Africa is all-important. And this significant responsibility was placed on an organization, the Regional Land Claim Commissioner, that was hijacked by Mr. Pieter Versaghi, who we believe is a business partner. In fact, we've got evidence that he's a business partner of Mr. Mabuza. So Mr. Versaghi had some skills, some legal skills that he had, and knew how to do it, and started working with some other members of the Land Claim Commission. And they, having repurposed it from a land reform institution, they repurposed it into a land grab organization. They failed to do basic verification. The land claim process, there's quite a complex land claim verification process that has to be followed. If that process is not followed, then somebody in power can hand land out like pieces of candy, because it can go to anybody. If that process is critical, if there are no legal constraints to who gets what land and whose land gets taken away, then you literally have the Robert Mugabe situation, where somebody in power can decide this person or that person should then get this or that piece of land. Now, I think I've lost my thread now. So the other issue, of course, is a payment of 3.4 million rand, which Stefanie was talking about. I think we just need to just stand there a little bit. There was a property called Fick that was bought and unsold. So bought for let's say 1.2 million. I don't have the exact figures before me, and then quickly unsold to a company owned by Mr. Fasagi for 1.2 million, and then very soon afterwards unsold for 4.6 million. So in fact, some of the property to the Land Claim Commission, to the Land Claim Commission. I think just to be clear, Stefanie, you referred to the Ndwandwe Community Trust, which is a communal trust that's created in terms of the law to be a custodian of the land that has been claimed. Very important organization, and that, of course, another story had also been hijacked. So what's important to understand is that besides the fact that Fick was inflated so much, and as I said, some were inflated by 1,000%. I mean, the evidence is there. Anybody who says there's no evidence must really is captured. Anybody in South Africa who says there's no evidence is captured. So some of the properties were inflated by more than 1,000%. Let's say, I can't remember the exact date, this was in 2004. In 2009, out of the blue, pressure is put on Mr. Mabuza to pay Mr. Fasaki 3.4 million rand. And the reason is that one of the vehicles that was used for the land claim fraud was about to be liquidated. And of course, if there's a liquidation, there's an investigation. It means that questions will be asked, by FNB. And because of this pressure, and the letters are there, they're not being denied either in court, are there to show Mr. Mabuza created an excuse, a fraudulent excuse, according to Mr. Paul O'Sullivan, to pay Mr. Mabuza 3.4 million rand. The paper trail is there. It was a payment on top of the vast inflation of the land, and it was a payment that was made claiming that there was an underpayment in regard to the SARS.
So here's a bit more.
Here's a little bit more for you. It's completely extraordinary.
It smells of corruption, Stefanie, and also explains some of these charges. And also, I mean, as Fernando Lopez says, mob style. It sounds like the tactics of a protection racket that you'd find in Sicily. Stefanie, the Deputy President has responded to these charges, and he said that there's nothing here. This is an old case. It's been rehashed. It's all been dealt with. It's a storm in a teacup, basically. What's your response to the Deputy President?
Yeah, it reminds me of those cartoons that you get and crying. All we want is proper investigations. He's got a right, in terms of a criminal trial, if you are an accused person, before that not so much, but if you're an accused person, you have a right to defend yourself, fair trial and all of that. And that's all we want, is that there's a proper investigation. If we haven't learned anything from state capture and, the political manipulation, is the fact that everybody should be equal before the law.
Yeah.
And that, and this may sound funny, and I don't mean it to sound funny, Fred Daniels was in a position to actually tackle this, although he might have, by this stage he's tired, but he was in a position to tackle this. I am sure that there are other victims of exactly the same sort of manipulation. It reminds one of a chess game, see how many crimes you can commit in order to get what you want. Is there so many other victims of what happened, but they don't have a voice, they cannot stand up, and they are just pure victims of this political manipulation.
So,
and
Stefanie, how are OUTA and Fred Daniels involved?
Excuse me, how?
How are OUTA and Fred Daniels involved?
Well, I think what we did as an organization, it's actually not about Fred. Fred was just one of the victims. And fortunately or unfortunately, depending on where you stand, he has built a case. He has gathered evidence, and because he's busy in civil court. So for us, it's about, firstly, like I said, I think very importantly is that everybody is equal before the law in our minds, and that whether you are the deputy president of this country, whether you are a minister, whether you are an MEC, if there is allegations of criminal conduct, it should be investigated properly. And then you should stand trial. And if you are found guilty, you should go to jail. And that you should not be protected because of who you are in a political party. And I think that is why we took on this case.
Makes sense why a civil activist organization has been involved.
It is about civil society. Yeah.
Got it.
Sorry.
No, I was talking over you. My apologies. Jacques, just 2 quick questions. What's happened to Fred Daniels in the last decade or two?
Yes, I mean, he left Mpumalanga in 2019, I think it was, and he's now living somewhere which I don't think I should be disclosing.
Sure.
But he's living somewhere in Gauteng, and he's looking after his family, protecting them, and taking all the precautions to do so. And he's beginning to reimagine what is life going to be after this case, which we hope to conclude in May, June next year. So he's a visionary. He's one of those few people, I would say, that are able to take a vision and execute it.
Has he managed to hold on to the land?
No. He's lost the land. He's that's one of the big part of his claim is that he had to sell the land on a fire sale, essentially.
Got it.
Get rid of it with all the pressure that was put on him. But he's a tough character. I mean, obviously, I think everybody in South Africa will know. But I think we must also understand that there must be some vulnerability too. I think that PTSD. I mean, he has been diagnosed with PTSD, and it's not
easy even for tough characters, as you say. What are the lessons that need to be learned out of this story, in your opinion, Jacques?
Well, we have to have independent law enforcement, number one. That's what my lawyer says to me. But my mediator says to me, we need nation building. We need to become a nation, because that's the only way we can train corruption, if we become a little ashamed about stealing. South Africans have no shame whatsoever when it comes to the public purse. But in the interim, we need independent law enforcement. I actually tend to agree with Paul O'Sullivan, where he's actually quite surprised that the Zono Commission didn't look at law enforcement, because all of this could not have happened without law enforcement, and of course the involvement of law firms and accounting firms who enabled that to take place. So the mediator in me just tells me that law enforcement can't be the only solution. We have to have a vision for our country, that we want to take our country forward, so we can constrain what I call those corrupt impulses that people have. We have to start with law enforcement, independent law enforcement. That's the beginning of it.
Well, Jacques, with those wise words, we say thank you to you this evening for appearing on the OUTA Hour. Jacques Joubert is Fred Daniels' attorney. We've been discussing the case against Deputy President David Mabuza, and we wish you a good night, Jacques, and a happy festive season. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jacques. All the best.
Right, let's move on. I'm just looking at some of the comments here, Wayne. Obviously, Debbie Stephenson saying how appalling that government has stooped to such a low level against a philanthropic citizen. Hope it's exposed in court. Here's another comment that came in from Christine Finnis. Thank you, Stefanie, for all the paperwork in the case against Didi Mabuza. Read one or two more. Christo Fent is not optimistic that anything will ever happen to him. And I think there was one more comment I wanted to pop up on screen. Claire Feldman says, unfortunately, it's the tax-paying public who provide the money for all this looting. And Madeline Gooch says, love that you take on such important cases. You give us hope, OUTA. I'm guessing we're going to get a lot more updates in 2023 around this case.
Yeah, definitely. But just to Christo, one thing we are certain that if nobody lays charges, then nothing will happen. And I don't blame you and a lot of people for feeling a little bit pessimistic about it or not really thinking that anything's going to happen. But I guess if we had have adopted that approach against Mosebenzi Zwane in 2017 when we were laying charges against him, Brian Molefe, Anosh Singh, Coco Machela, a lot of our information has got through to the right people in the NPA, and those people have been charged. So we always adopt a view that nothing will happen if nothing happens. So something has to start the ball rolling. We don't know where Mabuza is going to be next year. He might be out of government because of all the political dynamics at the moment. He could be on his own without the protection of the presidency, and all of those things come into play. And somewhere along the line, a good investigator gets the case finalized and lays the charge. So yes, we can be pessimistic. I think if we were still in the Zuma area with Sean Abrams, I'd be very pessimistic. But we've always had this view at OUTA that who's in power and who's in charge today is not necessarily in charge tomorrow. Things will change, and these cases can't be laid in 2 years' time. We've got the evidence now. Lay it now while it's all fresh, and Daniel's case is unfolding in the other case and the other matter. So, yeah, we believe we're doing the right thing, and I think he is going to be held accountable.
Let's talk about the year that was, 2022, all the highlights of 2022, and perhaps the biggest highlight has been that OUTA has celebrated 10 years of existence. How does this make you feel, Wayne? A decade?
Yeah, I must say, this wasn't planned. The initial journey was to set up an organization that would go and fight this in court, and sanity would prevail and government would come to its senses. Well, 10 years later, they did eventually come to their senses, but billions of rands wasted, of taxpayers' money wasted. But eventually they did adopt what we suggested. And that was a big milestone for us, because it was the matter that got us going. But it was also the matter that got a lot of people behind OUTA and enabled us to take this broader approach and broader strategy and not just fight one issue. And we were getting a lot of calls from the public. Don't just focus on tolls. Please tackle state capture and so forth. So we methodically built this team over 10 years. 45 staff today. We started out with 3 directors for the first 4 years, no salaries, and just paying off massive legal bills on a court challenge. But when we became relevant to society was when we said we'll defend every one of them that was summoned. And that really changed the course. The funding model came right. Stefanie and her legal team, the ability to build project management structures and investigations teams. It's been, for me, the most exciting journey of bringing on board the corporate governance, putting a corporate processes in place, marketing, good communications team with Sam and her team, while at the same time developing other initiatives that are entrepreneurial, the stuff that Julius is managing, the link apps, the water, the science programs that we've got going in measuring water quality across the country. It's a new project with Ferial Adams. We've featured that. But all in all, this ability to take on not just one project with ETOS, but 230 additional projects, some very expensive and long and drawn out, some very quick and short, submissions to Parliament, submissions to NERSA, the engagements that we have with various authorities, the driver's license issues it's a mind-blowing.
A lot to unpack.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so exhilarating because we know, every one of us on this team knows that the work we're doing, every bit of it, is making an impact. To what extent, we'll never be able to measure, but we know we have saved this country billions of rands. We have been behind the scenes when it comes to the charges that are being laid against Brian Molefe, Anosh Singh, that have put Eskom where it is today, in the mess that we're suffering with. So there's a lot of stuff there, Tom, I know.
Well,
wow.
Let's start with transport. Let's break it down, shall we? In the transport division, and I'm not sure whether you or Stefanie want to go first. But what are some of the highlights in transport?
You go, Stefanie.
Well, I think that obviously the biggest highlight, and I think a real morale booster, not just for I think the OUTA team, but also for fellow South Africans and our supporters, is the e-toll scheme that was finally, came to its end. Although this scheme hasn't worked for years, but government has sort of agreed that the e-toll scheme should actually not have happened. And then OUTA. We went to court. OUTA was declared unconstitutional. We went to the Court, and we await judgment there to see if the unconstitutionality of OUTA will be confirmed. And I think in the transport space, just the driver's license. I mean, we were quite vocal about the fact that the renewal of driver's license cards should be extended from 5 to 10 years. And although that it's not finalized, I mean, the minister did indicate that they are looking at the 8-year validity period. So that again was a win. The online vehicle license fees, just questioning the fact that everything is exorbitant. And just looking at RTMC, RTIA, I think people will remember that. Now I can't remember his name, but he was the CEO of RTIA that paid himself 9 million rand in 1 year. It's all these things, and I just want to, what Wayne has said about why do we do this, and that it is giving hope. I think if you look back 10 years, would we have said that by just sheer tenacity and so many brave motorists in Gauteng and nationwide, that we would be able to stop the e-toll scheme? And look where we are. It took 10 years. Now, not everything will take 10 years, but that is tenacity and just believing in what you do, and if we can move from transport, I think we were quite vocal in the transport space. Sure. I mean, Wayne can the finances of Sunroll, who's under the microscope quite often, can verbatim tell you what Sunroll is doing with their finances, because we need to keep an eye on what they are doing. But then just all the other accountability stuff that we did.
Well, what are you proud of in the accountability space?
I'm actually scared to start naming stuff, because what if I leave something out? But I'm sure that Wayne will correct me, or someone in the comment section can tell me. State capture, just the amount of work we've put in since 2017, and that our work in this space definitely paid off. The amount of arrests of high-profile implicated people that we finally saw. Ryan Molefe, Anosh Singh, Siyabonga Gama, the two Gupta brothers that were arrested in Dubai and are still currently in jail waiting for their extradition application. Certain individuals that were linked to the Fury Dairy scandal, Mosabisi Zwane, Aish Magashule, arrested and appear in court. Machelo Koko and 6 others arrested and appear in court. It's just all these little good news. And really, I think we can really say that it is OUTA's hard work. Rudy having the relations with the NPA and so forth. But then also we've exposed NSFAS corruption, the services seaters, just to show and lay complaints as to, and the recent one is the Grayson Reed, Asavela, that came to tell you about what we have uncovered there. The electoral reform bill, we are still fighting for that electoral reform bill to be constitutional, because initially we were part of the case to declare the Electoral Act unconstitutional. Rachel and her team, Rachel was a new addition, got permanently employed, and just took charge of the team there in Cape Town, our parliamentary office, with Chris and Liz, and are doing an excellent job to make submissions and just public awareness campaigns. We got some funding from CAS, and the Be the Boss campaign with Sam and her team, just creating beautiful things out there. Public protector. I mean, although we petitioned Parliament, and I can't say that, she's currently facing this impeachment process purely because of us, but I think it is good to see that a process in Parliament is actually working. They're taking a bit long, but that there is a process. Our fourth report was issued on the parliamentary oversight, and we were discussing today also an application to get more funding so that parliamentary oversight report can be more in-depth, and that we can show why we say that Parliament's oversight is not what it can be. Our Deputy Mabuza referral. We wrote to Gauteng Health MEC, can we remember Dr. Tim de Meyer's suspension after blowing the whistle? Talking about whistleblowers.
Tembisa Hospital as an example, yeah.
Yeah. And Babita, who we now heard after a year, we honoring her the day that she was, she was killed. Her honoring her bravery, and that a year after, the SIU saying, what she has said is actually the truth. And I hope that her legacy will make sure that everyone involved in the corruption, the tenderpreneurship that happened there at Tembisa Hospital, that they will be prosecuted, and if found guilty, that they will go to jail and that they will throw away the key.
Yeah, I found it encouraging that Panyaza Lesufi said to the law enforcement agencies and publicly, so go and get him. And hopefully we'll see more of that from our government officials.
Of course. Yeah.
And then what about the energy division and the work that's happened in energy?
I have to say that Andrea in the transport space held up that portfolio brilliantly. Andrea and Brendan, that was very involved in the ETOL stuff. Our parliamentary team forgot to mention Tabile, but yes, in the energy space, our car power ship court case. They are now currently again busy, and thank goodness for organizations like the Green Connection that is fighting with the car power ship people there in Saldanha and wherever, because they are trying to get their environmental their licenses to do this. But we decided that, nurses should have taken into account other things before they give them distribution licenses. Yeah. So the car power ship case is also there in the peripheral, and we will have to force them to give us the record, because I don't know if everybody can remember, they refused to give us, they gave us a redacted record that no one can read. Our objections, MYPD5 objections this year, nurses' comments on Eskom prices. I think everybody's on the edge of their seats to find out how much Eskom can increase.
Will it be 32%?
Yeah, which is, it's horrible to think. The fuel levy. I mean, Wayne has been very vocal and also very knowledgeable on the fuel levy, and we've been vocal on it. And government listened. They gave us fuel levy reprieval, which was excellent. And what we've also realized is that it's important to challenge government, but it's sometimes also important while challenging them that, they sometimes listen, and then we need to take their hands in order to show them. But, there is different ways of also thinking about a nation in South Africa that is, it's struggling economically, and that there are certain things that they can do, except for the fact that they should stop stealing, because we have enough money. If they stop, we were discussing it, the other day, that I think if you really look at it, South Africa's got enough money. We've got enough money to look after each and every person, but it is the way we spend the money coming into the
I was just thinking, for
is the
every
problem.
rand that's spent in this country, it's possible that in some cases that 80 or 90 cents of that rand are spent purely on corruption. And if we eradicated that, we would have a completely different country. Wayne, looking back to 2022, and as Stefanie rolled off the projects there, and there are more that we've left out, and to find out about OUTA's divisions and projects, if you're keen on knowing exactly what OUTA is up to, go to outa.coza and peruse the website. You'll be surprised at how much work OUTA does with such a small team. Wayne, would you call 2022 successful, and how are you looking ahead to 2023?
Well, it was. I think every year the work we're doing helps. So that in itself is success. And yes, we've advanced so many of our projects, and more come in. The saddest thing is that we haven't been able to grow our team. Our resources are constrained. We should have 145, not 45 staff. I say this often, but we're networking. We're looking at a more project-focused, specific funding from external funders, European Union funders, local funders. Hopefully that. But that's a different type of model, and you've got to work with that money only on those projects. Whereas we like to focus on stuff that comes and make decisions very quickly on some of them. But nonetheless, we've got to be flexible. We've got to be agile. We've got to also change our strategies at times, and that's what we're doing. We're looking at our strategic reviews right now for going through our budgets, and in January we'll be going to our strategic review. But I think the next year is going to be the year of, depending what happens this weekend in the ANC, depending who rules who runs this country thereafter. If there are any changes, there's going to be a lot of political turmoil. We have to watch that space. We are apolitical, but we have to watch what's going on. I think what's becoming more and more cognizant with civil society is that it is civil society that has to protect our democracy now and defend the onslaughts that will come and defend the onslaught that's happening. We have to drive the realization that business has to become far more active in the fight against corruption, far more bold, far more morally courageous, speaking up and supporting organizations like ours so that we can become stronger. And 2023, we've just got to get through it, because nothing much is going to change while the ANC is in power. You cannot leave the people in charge of the solution when they created the problem. They are so stuck and blinkered in the way they run this country, or the way they run their party first and then the country. So, we're excited about 2023, but we're also, cautiously optimistic, and 2024 can't come soon enough, because we believe that I know coalition politics is messy and is difficult, but we've got no option but to go there. And we're paying the school fees in Gauteng and Joburg, Tshwane and other places. But we're learning that if you have a good coalition with strong, robust agreements that have the country first in its sights, then I think we've got some exciting change and big change that can come, because Stefanie's right. We've got more than enough money to fix this. So we've got to get there before it breaks too badly. It's broken already.
Too true.
But we still got a lot of opportunity to fix this country, and we have to. We cannot give up. So I'm excited, and just to our followers, to our supporters out there, thank you so much. You make it all the worthwhile. Thanks for watching and listening. Thanks for being part of this movement. You are active citizens just by taking the time to listen and support us and be with us. And to this amazing team at OUTA, to yourself, Tom, to everybody out there that makes a positive impact. You're amazing people, and we need to go out there and do more in the new year. And we look forward to doing more, and just be safe. Have a good summer break, good Christmas, chill, relax. But we have to hit the ground running in 2023.
Can't leave without a word from you, Stefanie, to our viewers and the public.
Can I just say, I just want to, I'm very proud of the accountability public governance team. So to each and every team member, you guys are awesome. And 2022 was really a success. But I would remiss to not say that to the whole of OUTA. We are an amazing team, and you guys just rock. I mean, each and every one of you rock. But can I get a fountain of hearts, I think, for our fearless leader? I think that our organization, whether he wants to hear it or not, this organization went into a direction because of leadership. And we are extremely grateful for supporters, but as a team, we are extremely grateful for a leader that took us in a direction. And if there's going to be a picture of tenacity, bravery in the dictionary, I think there should be a picture of OUTA CEO Wayne Duvenage. So thank you, Wayne. I mean, it really is. We are an awesome team, great team, but without proper leadership, we will not be where we are. And to all our supporters, we get our energy from you. So thank you very much. And you hopefully will get on this journey, on the 2023 journey, and there's lots to do. And believe me, we have the energy to do it. We're going to have a little bit of a rest, and then we have all the energy to tackle all the things that we need to do, because we are not going anywhere.
Thank you, Stefanie Fick, and Wayne Duvenage. Thank you, Wayne. Well done on the accomplishments of OUTA over the last decade. What an achievement to hold up as part of your life story.
Yeah, no, thanks, Stefanie. Yeah, I really appreciate that. But it's all about teamwork, and it is amazing team. So, as you said, lots to do, a lot of fun to be had while we're doing it, a lot of hard work, a lot of pressure. We'll get there. Yep. Stay safe, folks.
Gail Hutchins says, I agree. Wayne Duvenage for president. Here's my Christmas wish, is that Eskom, one seat on the board will be reserved for OUTA. I would like to see the Eskom board have one seat with a civil activist organization representing South Africa on it. And I don't think there's a better organization than OUTA. And I mean, I don't know if Wayne's got the time, but wouldn't it be great to see someone from OUTA with the caliber of people that we
I'll
see.
Make the time.
Would you? Well, that's my Christmas wish, is that Wayne Duvenage gets a seat on the Eskom board, and we can finally start fixing the rot that we call our energy system in South Africa. Well, we leave it there tonight. Thank you for watching. If you're a regular viewer and you've been watching throughout the year, thank you for your continued support. We do appreciate our regular viewers and those who pop in from time to time from all over South Africa and all over the world. And if you're watching post-live, thank you for taking the time to watch this program. Final reminder to like and share the OUTA Hour so more South Africans can get exposed to the work that OUTA does and become active citizens. Well, it's our last live show for the year, and it's appropriate and time for me to say goodbye to you and wish you a wonderful festive season. If you're observing the religious holidays, I hope that your heart is filled with peace and love, and that your families and your homes are filled with festivity and lots of tasty food. And I hope we get more electricity over the second half of December than we've had in the first half. I wish you good times, and most of all, I wish you safety so that you return to us next year in good shape and fine form. Thank you so much for being part of the OUTA journey this year, along with us at the OUTA Hour show, including the team, Samantha van Nispen, Masego Motswaneng, Stefanie Davids, and more who have contributed to this program over the year. Thank you to Stefanie and Wayne for their time tonight, and good night. I'm Tom London, and until we meet again, I miss you already.